Here we are in our lesson 2 of our REVIT 2015 electrical power lessons. And what I want to kind of go through here is the different components that require power connections or connectors. And we're actually going to open up a family or two. So as we've been working through this model and connecting duct work and lighting and plumbing and electrical and all that stuff. Some components have more connectors than others. So that's the whole backbone behind these objects. They are really inanimate objects with special connectors. So if we look at this light and we click on it, as we've seen, we see these little connectors on here, and you can see it'll tell you right there it's a lighting connector, and it's going to give you a little bit of information. Anytime you want to in Revit, you can click on an item, or you can click on several items. You can do a crossing box and grab a couple of items, and then you can just go down and, oh, I'm moving something there. I got my surface on here. So you can grab, a couple of different things. Doesn't matter what you grab. And then you can go down here to your temporary hide and isolate. Click on here and say, temporarily isolate these elements. And then it'll just isolate them. You can kind of spin them around, do what you want. Sometimes it's a little easier to see things that way. Gives you a bit of information. And then you can also see the properties over here. If it doesn't have a circuit connected to it, it won't. It'll say it'll be blank as well as the panel. You can create a circuit, and it's only when you connect it to a panel that it actually gets the circuit. Other than that, it's just an unnamed circuit. We've seen that in our other lessons. So I can go down here and just reset that. And then, so that only had really one connector. Then we can go to something like this mechanical. Oh, that's a piece of duct work. We want where am I? We want to grab one of these units right here. Sorry about that right here. So this is the water source heat pump. Okay, and again, let's isolate this guy. Isolate the element. And then click in and have a look at it. Okay, so this guy has a whole bunch of connectors on it. If you pick on it, it's got, if you zoom in and kind of swivel around, you can see what it has. If you hover over here, it says create pipe, create pipe. So there's different systems. These ones you can't create anything from, but you can see that there's a 12 millimeter out, in, and then if you look at the properties over here, it's going to give you some information on water, the different connectors that are on there. We can look over here and you can see that there is different connectors on there. If you right click on one and you can add a pipe or a piece of ductwork, it'll say draw duct or draw pipe. If you right click on here and it doesn't say draw pipe, it means that you can't at this point in time draw a pipe from there. And you can see this is an electrical connector. Well, in this case, you don't really click on here and say draw wire, but you can go in and add it to a circuit. Once it's part of a circuit, you can edit that circuit and you can pick the panel, etc. So this particular heat pump is got all these different connectors. Now, if I click on this and say edit family, okay, now I'm actually getting into the family editor, which is the guts of this component. And you can see these are the connectors inside of here. So if we hover over here, it'll say that's a hydronic supply, that's a hydronic return, connector 2 hydronic return, connector 1 hydronic supply. Okay, and over here, that's our power connector. You can see power balanced. If you click right on here, it's going to tell you it has 3 poles. Okay, power is balanced, so some information. So as you click your different connectors, this is a duct connector, so that's has a rectangle, different shape. Okay, it's an out, it's supply air, gives you some information. So while you're in here, if you go create, you can add in electrical connectors, duct connectors, pipe, cable tray connectors to your electrical panels and stuff like that, cable tray connectors, okay? And then you can put in different information as far as what type it is. Conduit connectors. So these are all connectors you add to the family. So the box itself really isn't anything. You could take this box and delete it. These are the items inside of here that are left, that are the actual intelligence of that mechanical device. Okay, so just so you know. So you don't want to save this. You could do a save as and play with it if you want. I'm just going to do an undo. So as you add your connectors, and that's not what this lesson is about, but you'll get different options. So if I say, okay, I want to add in a duct connector, then I can say a face-based or a work plane-based. And then as I add that in, I can pick on the surface. Or I should, where was that? Create duct connector, work plane, and then pick a plane, and then pick a plane over here, and then that's where I add it, and then I can turn it around. I can move it. I'm not sure why that's not moving. It keeps rotating. Let's try that again. Move, and pick a base point. I guess you just can't drag it. And I think you can nudge it. So once you have that on there, you can nudge it and then you can rotate it around. So that would become a supply connector, because when you add that connector inside of here, you get to pick your system off of here. I should point that out. Always check your options bar. Okay. And you can create other systems as well down here in families. Okay. So, and in the project as well. So you have your different connectors that are built into these families. And this is probably one of the more complex ones because it has air in, air out, hydronic in, hydronic out. It has a sanitary, I believe, over here as well. Okay, if you just hover over that. Okay, it has a sanitary connector. You can see the tooltip on my mouse, and you can also see it at the lower left down over here. Okay, so as you go, and we're going to go back into the project, and you hover over this family, this element, and you use your tab key, tab, 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 tab. It's going to tab through all of these connectors, and it's also going to tab through the network and systems and all that. So this, when you use your tab key to cycle through all the different connectors, inevitably you will see all of these guys come up. Okay, so if you ever want to know what's going on, you just open the family. So we'll go up to our application pull down and just say close, which closes off this one particular family. Do I want to save? No. And now we're back into here where we've isolated the element. And again, there's all those little connectors. Okay, I was just looking at sunglasses reset. And there's the family built into my project. So that's one of the more complex ones. And then if we look down here to our electrical room, okay, we have our transformer that's on the outside. And if you look at that guy, again, you're going to start to recognize all these little connectors. Okay, and that's what these are. Conduit connectors, cable tray connectors, power connectors. So if I hover over this guy and I go tab, 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 and you read down in here, watch, tab, electrical network circuit 1, transformer, electrical network circuit 1. So it's going through the different connectors on there. Then I go over to the switch over here. Okay, and let's isolate this guy. Okay, we'll go down and say isolate this guy. So he's got a bunch of connectors on there too. If you open up this family, these actual little switch dudes, they're nothing. They're just purely graphical. Okay, the real connectors are where you see these guys. So you can see where it's an electrical one. It has the electrical, and then the piping ones, a hydronic, have the diameter. So if I pick on this switch and I hover over it and I go tab, 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 you're going to see on here Okay, force 5. It's going through each circuit and connectors. Okay, so let's go back to here and reset. Now we go to the panels that are on the wall that are connecting to that switch. And there's different panels on each floor. There's an electrical room. There's 2 electrical rooms. There's on each floor. So there's 3 electrical rooms here. And there's 3 electrical. No. Yes, there's 1, 2, yeah, 3. They're not all positioned above each other. So these are different panels, and they all have names, and they all have their circuits. Okay, panel and circuit. Nothing too complicated there. So if you hover over this guy and you go tab, 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 oops, escape, escape to get out of there, tab. If you pick on this and then you say edit family, okay, we look at what's this is made up of. Okay, if you hover over it, it's just a box, which again you could delete that. Oh, because they're face-based, they took the connectors with them. So in that case, I couldn't delete them. If I hover over this guy, it says it's a cable tray. You see connector element, connector 5, cable tray. And you can tell that the electrical ones are circles. Okay, the HVAC ones are rectangles, or sorry, the cable tray are rectangles. The circle with the crosshairs is power. So this is cable tray. This is conduit. So conduits have that symbol. Cable tray have that symbol. Cable tray conduit. Cable tray conduit. I'm wondering why one has crosshairs. Is that just because of the view? Or the surface? I'm not sure. So those are cable tray conduit connectors. So when you go up to here and you say cable tray conduit connector. Conduit and cable tray. So there's one of each maybe. So that is the kind of looking at the inside of the family. We can close that off. And that's how these function. And then from there we have our lights, and then we have our little outlets. I'm going to type TL on the keyboard for thin lines. Okay, there's just, a light switch or an outlet. Let's see, it's a receptacle and a receptacle again. So if I pick on here, what is this one has? It has a connector, and that's the information. If we say edit the family, we'll go inside of here, and there is just basically one electrical, and it says number of poles, power, unbalanced. Okay, so the rest is just, again, pictorial. Close it off. So as we're going through these electrical videos and we're starting to connect all this stuff electrical wise, we've done some HVAC and plumbing and stuff like that, but some devices or elements require hydronic and HVAC and power and sanitary, etc., and some don't. So power is one of those ones that are typical for just about, I don't want to say everything, not necessarily plumbing, but it is required. In fact, it is required for plumbing, but it's required for all the different mechanical systems. So when we start to connect our power, we just have to be aware that all of the elements have to have those connectors and stuff in there. Even a piece of ductwork has a connector. If I click on a piece of ductwork and I look at the end of it, that's a connector, which means as the air moves through here, it knows how big this guy is, it knows how this big. So as the commodity passes through everything, everything has connectors on the end of them. Okay, some of them just have one connector, and then as we saw with the heat pumps, they have more than one connector. So we'll come back in our lesson 3 on our power lessons, and we'll clean up this wing on this side and start to add in our electrical panels and start to add power to our building.